Welcome to Conscious Profits Unfiltered. This is your host, Sebastian Nam.
What up, fam? Today I had on a human who is just full of energy and positive vibes. Nastasha McKeon is the executive chef / CEO and founder of Choice Juiceries. She holds a certification in plant-based nutrition from Cornell University and a holistic nutrition certificate from the National Healing Institute. With such an extensive background in health and wellness, she has taught plant-based cooking classes in hospitals in addition to consulting with restaurant brands on how to incorporate healthy options into their menus, along with product development, systems, education, and sales. She opened her first brick-and-mortar store in 2014 in Carlsbad, California, and she now has expanded to 6 locations plus online. Frankly, to be expanding a conscious brick-and-mortar business during a pandemic is pretty badass. So as you can imagine, she's about to drop some solid nuggets of knowledge and inspiration on the pod. Enjoy the show. What's up, Nastasha? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being on. I like to always start out by asking my guests, when was your last oh shit moment? First thing that comes to mind. Just could be good or bad.
Oh gosh. Probably the day I was going on an NBC show. It's called California Live last week, and I forgot my laptop, and it was like a Zoom podcast like this, and I forgot my laptop and my AirPods. So it was like I showed up to the office and I had nothing that I needed, and it was definitely a big oh shit moment.
That is an oh shit moment.
Yeah.
For sure. I would definitely be shitting on that.
Yeah,
for sure. So Nastasha, you were recently at Surf Ranch. I know you were just there. I saw it on your Instagram and we chatted about it. You have to have like a kook of the day moment at some point during your surfing, career, probably early on the days or recently. Do you have anything like that?
Well, I had a kook of the day moment at the Surf Ranch, actually. So
Perfect question.
I have a really hard time going left. Like I prefer going right. I'm regular. I like to go right. I mean, I can go left just fine normally, but I was talking to the lifeguard who was sitting next to me, and it was my priority left coming next. But we were talking about going right. We were like talking about like the wave on the right and how it barrels. And so I just and it's so bizarre at the Surf Ranch, you're paddling 45 degrees, like in the opposite direction you would be paddling in the ocean. So you don't paddle like you would into the, into the face of the wave. You actually paddle against. So you're paddling.
Really?
So if you're going left, you're paddling right, 45 degrees right. And then you have to drop and turn really fast. Otherwise you get eaten by the lip of the wave. So we're having a conversation about going right. I have to paddle right to get into the left. And so I drop in, and mind you, like, your entire groups, there's like 20 people watching you. If they're not in the water with you, they're watching you on camera live. Like, and there's a photographer on you, like everyone's right there watching. And I paddle in, and I just start going right on a left, like at the Surf Ranch, in the worst possible time you could possibly do this in your life. I mean, we've all done this before, but like at the ranch, totally sucked. So I lost a whole wave to that, which sucked. But I did poach a few waves later to make up for it. But still, it sucks to lose a wave, especially when you're paying the price you're paying to be there.
How's the, right. How's the, is the wipeout pretty bad there too? Or is it not?
It's painful. Oh
Is
my
it?
gosh. Both times I've been to the ranch, I've come back with whiplash for sure. It's way gnarlier than taking a wipeout in the ocean. There's just something about the way that, because it's, mechanically generated, right, like the way that it hits you and the way that you smack down. I even got dragged down on the bottom, like scraped at my chin. There's concrete underneath, and it's only like, I don't know, 3-4 feet deep. They always tell you like go flat when you fall. But I mean, I don't always choose how I fall. So at one point I actually got wrapped up by my leash and then like was being dragged across the bottom and scraped at my chin.
Oh man.
I know, but I was kind of thrilled because I was like, oh yeah, I got this at the ranch,
That is way cooler. So like my kook of the day moment is way kookier than that. Like that's actually badass. Mine,
really?
I went to Santa Cruz with a buddy, and I had never surfed in Santa Cruz. I was really excited, and we were going to steamers, and basically I had a brand new wetsuit. I was super stoked about it because it's extra cold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had my booties, I had my gloves. I was like, this is so cold. I was so excited about my new suit. And it's one of those really like, it's the ones that you put in all the way to the top. There's no zipper and all that. So we're all ready. We get to the spot. We found a primo parking spot, and I still had to walk a few blocks. And then right as I'm as we're about to go down these stairs, I'm just like, dude, I'm kind of uncomfortable.
Uh-oh.
And
I know where this is going.
I had put it on backwards.
Yes.
Oh my God. And then they had this like gross public bathroom, and like I had to go in there and like take it all off. You know how hard it is to take it off? I was already sweating and sticky. So definitely like that was legit kook of the day. Now I put it out there in the universe.
Yep.
So now nothing like that will ever happen again.
Never, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a moment like that myself. So not at the range, thankfully, but yes, I think everyone that surfs has had that moment.
Right? Yeah, it's for real. So Nastasha, tell us about the first seed that was planted into your journey.
Oh gosh, my journey into choice.
Just your journey into just, you know, your passion with food and plants. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the first seed started at 11 years old when I lost someone that was very important for me in my life. I like to say she was a light in a really dark place. She was probably the only positive role model I had in childhood, and the one person, you know, who I could count on to make sure that my basic needs were met. And she was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called scleroderma. But she actually didn't die from the disease. She died from complications of the prescription she was given to treat the symptoms of the disease. So one of the side effects of the medication she was given was a heart attack. And one night she thought she was having a heart attack, and she was aware of the side effect of the medication. So she called 911. She says, I'm having a heart attack. They come out, they check her vitals. They say she's fine. Most people don't know this, but back then, heart attacks had mostly been studied in men. And the way that a woman presents in a heart attack can be different than a man. And so at that time, they didn't recognize, so to their credit, if you will, like they didn't recognize that she was indeed having a heart attack. And so, you know, they took her to the hospital. She demanded, even though they said she was fine, she demanded to go to the hospital. She's stubborn, which I definitely got that quality. And they took her to the hospital and they checked her in. And again, her vitals were fine. So they put her in triage. They came back 45 minutes later. She's in cardiac arrest and she dies of a heart attack. Obviously, this is like heartbreaking, you know, under any circumstances, you know, when you lose somebody that's so important to your life and your own personal well-being, but in general, somebody that you love dearly lost, you know, is very impactful at any loss is impactful in your life.
Right.
But this was a major blow for me. I mean, things went from bad to much worse after she passed away, and I knew that was happening. So losing her to not even her disease, but to what I saw at the time, like Western medicine, you know, I felt like she was a victim of Western medicine, or maybe some flaws in Western medicine. Not to knock Western medicine. I mean, if like my head is cracked open, like please take me to the hospital. Like I trust the doctors to, you know, put me back in place. But it wasn't about treating the actual root cause of the disease. It was about treating the symptoms. And so seeing that happen, and maybe a week after she passed away, I had to like go to her house and clean out all of her belongings. And I remember coming across this book, and this is where the real seed was planted. Obviously, like out of tragedy, oftentimes like beautiful things can happen if we look for them. And so at the time I didn't see it, but she passes away. I'm going through a really traumatic time. And I find this book in her room that someone had just given her. It was still like wrapped up, and she never even got the chance to read the book. And the book was all about this idea that food is medicine. And this was a completely foreign idea to me because I had never been exposed to, you know, the saying Hippocrates, like any of this. You know, to me, it's like, you know, I had a lot of faith in Western medicine. It's like I get sick, I go to the doctor fixes me up or gives me a medicine to treat the symptoms. That was what I knew. And food is medicine. I had no idea. And to be honest, I think, you know, I had never even so much as had a fresh vegetable in my life. You know, I grew up on fast food, and you know, when we did have food in the fridge, which was incredibly rare, it was often like the things that you get from like, you know, I grew up on, you know, food stamps. And so it was often like the foods that you get there. It's like, you know, you get your like milk and your cheese at the first of the month, but like a fresh vegetable is not something that you get. So the only vegetables I had been exposed to my entire life, you know, to that point were canned vegetables and these things.
Yeah.
So, and that was rare.
Wow.
So I would say the seed was really planted for like my love for health and wellness and nutrition back then. I didn't have the right environment to really cultivate that seed at the time, but the seed was planted. I mean, that year I was 11, I think for New Year's Eve, I gave up soda for my New Year's resolution. for a
You were
year.
11?
And then I was 11, and
Wow.
learned it was bad for me. And I was like, okay, I was on this, mission to like be healthier with what I could control.
Hmm.
And so I knew soda was bad. And so for New Year's that year, I gave it up as my New Year's resolution, and I never drank soda again from 11 years old on. So the seed was definitely there, but it didn't really start to
Wow.
develop, I would say, until I found some independence, early in life, and was actually responsible for myself, making my own money, making my own food choices. And that's when the seed really started to sprout and grow, and developed into what I know today as my nutritional philosophy, which really laid the groundwork for my business and everything that I do in life, truly.
That's amazing. It's crazy how much that can inspire, a horrible event, which I'm sorry that happened to you, and in
Thank
a
you.
way has also been clearly the driver for you. I think it takes a lot of self-drive regardless. Like there's got to be something that, for an 11-year-old to decide to give up soda as an 11-year-old
Yeah.
without being told to do so, which is a
Yeah.
lot of self-drive, probably innate self-drive mixed with that inspiration that came from, your grandma's event. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, Nastasha, how is plant food medicine? How is plant food medicine? How is food medicine?
How is food medicine?
How
That's a
is
great
food medicine?
question. Yeah, absolutely. Food, people always say, food is medicine. I mean, Hippocrates, the father of medicine, says so himself, but I don't always agree with that statement. I've come to learn that not all food is medicine. I mean, we can all agree that McDonald's is not medicine. It's food, supposedly, but I don't
Mm,
think that that's considered medicine. So I think that for me, recently I authored the book, Plant Food is Medicine, because to me, that's where the real medicine is. It's,
mm,
the healing compounds, it's the nutrients, it's the live enzymes and minerals and vitamins that our bodies so desperately need to thrive, even survive in this life. And so that's where the real medicine is. And I think that it plays a significant role in disease prevention,
mm.
even in treating disease. Now, I don't I I don't believe that that's the only answer, right? I think the food is one piece of the puzzle. I'm a big believer in like mind, body, soul. I think that the food plays a significant role in our health and well-being, but so does our mindset, so does the stress in our lives, so does a lot of different things, but certainly we want to stack the cards in our favor, So to me, eating,
Yeah.
as healthy as, as a healthy, clean, whole foods, plant-based diet as I possibly can. And I always recommend that to everybody. That's one of the ways that you can certainly stack the cards, in your favor.
Yeah. How much do you think our disconnect today with nature and with food is tied to the disease that we're experiencing today with the virus, for example?
Majorly. I mean, if we talk about the virus today, it's like nowhere have I seen anybody covering how we could develop or improve our own immunity through the foods that we're eating or through our lifestyle choices. It's all about double masking and vaccinating, and I'm not knocking those things, but what I'm sad to see is there's a lack in education about how we can actually improve our immunity or immune response to insults like this virus, for example, through the food that we eat or through our lifestyle choices, getting out in the sun, getting exercise, eating healthy foods, and that's such a huge part of the puzzle that nobody wants to talk about. Maybe because it's not lucrative. I'm not really sure why. It breaks my
Mm.
heart. But I do think that that's a huge part of it. And there is a big disconnect. An example of that I always like to use, I used to teach, health and wellness classes to preschoolers. So I do like these garden table classes for preschoolers. And it always blew my mind. Like I would, the first class I'd always like, expose them to these like fresh vegetables, right? And they would be so turned off by a vegetable, like they didn't know what it was. They didn't want to eat it. They didn't want to try it. Then I'd like take them out into the garden the next class, and we would like, see it growing, and we'd pick it ourselves, and we'd like take it inside and we prepare it and like make the food together. And all of a sudden the kids would be excited to actually eat it. And I used to have parents coming to me saying like, my kid is asking me to buy bell peppers at the grocery store. Like, what have you done? And I'm, it's like education is a huge part of, and getting
Yeah.
out in nature. And I noticed this myself. I recently, maybe like 2 years ago, I lived in Carlsbad. I'm a surfer girl. I love next to the ocean. But for me, the natural progression of my life was like, I make food for a living. I turn, healthy food into, delicious food that people like. I always love showing people how healthy food can taste good. So the next step for me was learning how to grow food. And that was like a disconnect I had. Like I support local farms and I do all this, all of this, but I didn't know anything about how to actually grow the food and growing seasonally and all of these things. So I bought a piece of land out in, the outskirts of North County, 15 minutes away from the coast, not that bad, but still. So I bought like an acre and I started farming food. And I'll be honest, I don't admit this. In fact, this is probably the first time I've admitted this on a podcast, but the first time that like I had to harvest like my own, like, say, I think it was like broccoli was coming in, and when I was harvesting the broccoli and I saw like the bugs and all these things, that I had to like, cause I'm growing organically. And normally when I buy organic produce, it comes nice and clean at the grocery store. It's perfectly pretty. There's no bugs in it, So the first time I had to like cut my own piece of broccoli, and there's like, earwigs on it or whatever it was, I'm picking them off and I'm rinsing them off and I'm, shrieking as I'm doing it. And then I go to eat it. It's like, there was it was like, it felt gross to me. It felt dirty and gross. And there was a big disconnect, and I had to really get past that mental block. And I think a lot of people do. And so I think the more that we get our hands in nature, get exposed to the way that our food is grown, like getting out, to a farm or anything that you can do like that, even the local farmers market, if you can't get to a local farm, and just see, just getting in touch with where our food comes from, I think is a big part of like, helping to bridge that gap and that disconnect from, how food is medicine for us.
Yeah.
That was a long-winded answer.
No, I love that. That was beautiful. Yeah, that's really interesting. And clearly I'm not an expert in the field, but I would assume that the bugs on, the plants and all that gross stuff, right, also has a role to play.
Yeah.
Right. In the whole system and why things are nutritious for us, So, but you studied holistic nutrition after that, and then you started actually doing consulting, correct?
Yeah. So that was, gosh, now years ago. So I had a past, I like to say past life, in the banking industry. So I was in the finance industry basically since I was a baby. I had like my Series 6, my 63, my life insurance license. I did business, banking, business lending. I did, home lending. I did all kinds of stuff. So I was like a baby in that industry. And this is before like the 2008, all that craziness. So did really well for myself, really young from where I came from. I bought my first house at like, I think I was 19 when I bought my first house, and I was buying boats and toys and, like, okay, I made it, financially, I felt like I made it from where I had come from. And, but I was unhappy, I wasn't fulfilled in any way in my work. It was just like, the Sunday blues, going into work on Monday and just like clocking in and, selling some investment products and making a commission, and then, going home, waking up, doing it all over again. There's no fulfillment in it. And I met a client one day who actually told me that if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. And that really planted a seed, again, for me in my life. It made me really look at my life and try to figure out, well, what is it that I love outside of being a mom? To my knowledge, I can't get paid for that. So outside of being a mom, like, what do I love in my life? And I realized it was in the break room where I was talking about, the healthy little quinoa salad I was having for lunch, and sharing recipes and ideas with people and inspiring other people to make healthy choices. And so from that, I decided, okay, well, I want to do something in nutrition. I didn't know what that looked like, but I knew that was like the breadcrumb that I needed to follow that would eventually lead to that next big thing, whatever that was for me. And so I started studying holistic nutrition, plant-based nutrition as well. And from there, it was kind of like, well, what do I do now? So kind of to bring things full circle, which I always find to be ironic, I started teaching. I was with this company. We were actually going into Scripps, which is the place where my grandmother passed away. And I was teaching doctors and nurses about plant-based nutrition and cooking, which is the irony was so incredible, if you really think about it. And I loved it. It was incredibly fulfilling teaching and realizing that the doctors and nurses that I had placed so much value in their knowledge and wisdom in treating disease had little to no nutritional background. I felt intimidated. I don't have a medical, degree, and, I studied holistic nutrition. So I was like, what am I going to teach these people? But then, shockingly, there was a lot to teach them, and they loved everything they were learning. I'd even like cook recipes for them, give them recipes, teach them about the nutrition behind it. And they'd come back to class week after week and they loved it. But I noticed that nothing was changing. And I always thought, if I show people that healthy food can taste good, people will make better choices. But what I learned through that experience was that it wasn't enough, because at the end of the day, when I talked to these, people that continue to come back to my class but didn't make any like lasting changes in their lives, what was preventing them from like making these, lifestyle choices? It was that it wasn't convenient. So I was like, okay, it's not enough to make healthy food that tastes good. I also have to make it convenient. And at that time, I was already doing a little bit of consulting, as I told you, and had some experience.
Let me interrupt you.
The rest.
Let me interrupt you. Did you see the doctors?
Yeah.
Did you see the doctors? Were they making any change from when you were going in there?
No.
They weren't making change either. Okay.
No, I mean, not lasting changes. No, like they would come in and they would eat the food and they would love it. But at the end of the day, it was like, it's just not convenient to eat this way, was the pushback that I would get. Like, I'll come here and I'll learn this and I'll eat this, but at home, I don't cook. I don't have time to cook.
Yeah.
I work, 60 hours a week or whatever it is. I don't have time to eat like this. And my argument was always, you can always find a healthy option on the menu, but their rebuttal to that would be, it's really hard to make a good choice when you're staring a burger and fries in the face, which kind of became part of my, creating of my company, was like, okay, make a place where they can't make a bad choice, so everything on the menu is actually good for you. So it's a safe place for them to go in and know they're not going to be deterred by the smell of French fries and cheeseburgers cooking in the background and then trying to choose the healthy option,
Well, yeah, it's such an irony. Some of my unhealthiest friends are doctors, and
not crazy. I know. What?
It's mind blowing. Now, what I wonder if they were actually listening to you though, and at least giving the advice to their, patients. I wonder if they were at least doing that. I don't know if you even know that. But
I do believe so. And to this day, a few people that used to come to my classes, and this is like over a decade ago, like I run into them at my stores now, like I ran into one the other day at one of my shops, I think my Del Sur location. And she, was sharing with me how she's still, out, trying to make all these changes, and she's still working in the hospital, which is an unhealthy environment for her, but she is still, because of those classes, she's still inspired and she's still, making good choices for her personal life, and hopefully sharing that also, with people that she comes into contact with. I'm certain of that.
I love that. So then you started consulting for restaurants. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was putting like, healthy options on people's menus. That I was doing recipe development consulting, and I was working with this one company who kind of had the right idea. Like that, the outside looked like the big picture. I walked into the door the first day I got there, and they actually had on the wall, that Hippocrates statement that I live by, which is let food be thy medicine. And I was like, oh my gosh, like the breadcrumbs have led me here, and I'm supposed to be here,
Yeah.
And I truly believed I was there to help this company. And I jumped in and I started, initially consulting, putting, options on the menu. And then before I knew it, I was like running their blog and running their cleanse program. And I was just like doing all this stuff. But I realized I was kind of like fighting a losing battle, because the people behind the company, they were interested in making money, and they weren't interested in doing what was right by their customers. So an example of that would be like they said that they were organic. It was actually in their tagline, was like that they were organic, and they were using things on the Dirty Dozen. They weren't really buying things that were organic. They were using plastic bottles that, weren't BPA free. They were getting from like TJ, but they were like, it looked really good on the outside. The brand was really good. They spent a fortune branding it, and like the menu was well developed, but it was a facade. And as soon as I got in and realized that, and I started to try to implement changes, I realized that there was so much pushback. Like they didn't care about doing the right thing. They just wanted to make money. And so that's when I realized like there wasn't a company out there that existed which originally I wanted to just like work for a company and help a company like this. But what I realized was there wasn't one out there that had integrity. And my goal was, yes, to create, healthy food that tasted good, put it in a place where you couldn't make a bad choice, and also to do it with integrity, like make that be more important than the profits of the company. And that's a rare thing to find. And I feel like that's what we've been really successful at doing. And it's crazy that company is not even around today. We've weathered some really gnarly storms in this industry, but I believe we've been able to do that because of the integrity, because we live and die by that integrity. That's always been a true north for me, and it helped to lead me in the right direction. And a funny story on that, I'll be quick, but that company, they grew to be pretty big, and they actually approached me 2 years ago and said, we want to buy your company. They have locations up in Santa Monica, locations up in Brentwood, locations
Oh,
all
I
over.
want to know the company name so bad.
I can't now that I've
Tell me the company name. Come on.
I won't do it. Off camera, off record. And so they, they've opened up all over. And at this point, when they approached me, they were in the middle of merging with a much larger company that had a huge presence up in like San Francisco. So we're talking like, just so many locations and such a huge platform. And my life word is impact. I want to leave the world a better place than I found it. And I believe that I get to do that through food, right? Nutrition. So I was, they really sold me on this idea that you're going to have a much larger audience, a much larger platform, and you'll be able to make such a bigger impact. And I was like, wow, this is this company that like, they came to me because they said they lost the soul of their company and they really wanted like me to be the face of the brand and what have you. And so I really considered it. It was a really provocative offer. But at the end of the day, I asked them, are you willing to, stop using plastic bottles and go glass? Are you willing to start using like compostable packaging and recycled paper for your menus? Like, are you willing to like do the hard work to actually like be sustainable, in all the ways that are important to me? Are you willing to stop pasteurizing your juice and go raw? And that's better for the customers. You're certainly charging enough for it. And at the end of the day, they said no. And so as hard as it was to say no to that, like it didn't align with my integrity. And so I said no. And then ironically, a couple of years later, they ended up, they're not even they were bought out by a bigger company. And I would have been completely, kicked out. And so it ended up being like such a good decision on my part.
Yeah.
But the integrity is what helped me to make that decision. And I feel like that's just one small example of the many times that, I've been thrown all these like, flashy offers, but I stayed true to the integrity. And that's led us to where we are today, where we're running a successful company. We've got 6 locations and we're in the talks of opening our 7th spot here in San Diego. And, just published a book, and we're, lots of opportunities still opening up for us. So I don't see us slowing down anytime soon.
Hey guys, I just want to remind you, if you want to find more content like this, you can visit sebastiannaum.com. That's Sebastian, Naum.com. You can also get a ton of other marketing resources from myself and my agencies, ranging from SEO to social media, influencer marketing, branding, web development, and more. Again, that's Sebastiannaum.com. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the show. I love that. Well, we'll get into that. But first, I got to say, I recently had another great guy on the pod, and he was talking about when he decided to start marketing for purpose-driven companies, he got like just fed the juiciest offer ever. It was a 7-figure contract. And he goes on to talk about rejecting a 7-figure contract. And it's like a very similar situation that you're just telling. It's like, right, when the universe is testing your integrity and your values and what you do. And then as soon as you're able to pass that test, you elevate, and then you're able to go to the next step and have success in what you're really meant to do. So I love that story. And also it's mind blowing, and it pains me what you're telling me about them really using so much of it from a branding and marketing perspective, because having been in digital marketing for a long time, I'm preaching to companies about the importance of having purpose really in the DNA of the brand, and doing it, from a very just true and real manner, and then using that purpose and that impact to then market, because it also helps sell more and it helps them scale more. And the more you can scale, the more good you can do. So I use that in a marketing standpoint. But to do that in an authentic way, fuck, man.
I know.
That really sucks.
I know. And it's everywhere. I mean, one of the biggest like juice companies out there that's like at every grocery store. And with juice at the grocery store, you have to be pasteurized. It's the only way to get your product. The FDA requires like a HACCP plan, which means you have to have a pasteurization process in order to put your juice in a grocery store. So like Choice will never be at the grocery store because I'll never pasteurize my juice.
Could it be like local grocery stores though?
No, even local grocery stores. You cannot sell if you have raw juice. The FDA does not allow you to sell that juice outside of your own locations. And so you can only get raw juice from the maker itself.
Got
And
it.
so this company, they got really smart with the marketing. They're all over, and they're in glass bottles and they look the part and everyone's so excited about them. It's like, oh, raw juice at the grocery store. And so I started looking into it. I'm like, how are they doing this? Cause like I'm licensed by the FDA and I can't do that. So how are they doing it? And they were saying they had this special technology, light filter technology. And I was like, what is this? So I went to my cousin who's like a chemical engineer and I'm like, help me understand this light filter process. He's like, oh, see that symbol right there? That's gamma radiated. I'm like, wait, they're gamma radiating and they're calling it raw and light filtered. Like, oh my God, it just breaks me that people are willing to do that. I don't know how you sleep at night. I was just born
Right?
with like this integrity thing that like doesn't allow me to like, profit off of like other people's lack of like knowledge in the area. And so a big part of what we do is like trying to constantly educate people, because when people compare us to another company, for example, there's a big one, at the grocery stores, there's tons of them, big brands that are out there and they're like, oh, well, I can get a Suja for like, $5, for example. And not to knock Suja, I'm like, if that's all you have access to, great. But if you can't compare a Suja to like a cold pressed raw juice, that's served in a glass bottle without any plastic leaching, that's not been on the shelf for 45 days. It's been on the shelf for 2 days or 1 day. It's a totally different animal. So you can't, yeah, that might cost $10, but the value of that $10 is so much greater than what you're getting for $6, something that's devoid of most of the nutrition that was there when it was initially juiced. So there's huge lack of awareness in that arena, but people really take advantage of that and with the marketing stuff,
Yeah, it's a bummer. Yeah. And the truth is all those extra dollars spent on the real stuff, on the good stuff, are dollars that you're saving in the end when people are spending on their health later on in their lives anyway. So
I know it blows my mind.
Expensive to eat right. And it's just like, well, what about healthcare,
Yeah, absolutely. And also last time I checked, nobody balks about spending like $13 on a cocktail. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're going to spend $13 on a cocktail that's like, likely filled with a lot of sugar and alcohol, which, like not the healthiest thing, but like, you're going to complain about $10 on 6 pounds of organic produce. Like, what is wrong with the world? Like,
to be honest, in my like 20s, a while back, I remember actually having this judgment on my mom. This one time she bought this really expensive juice and I was like, what the F are you doing? and she's like, you probably just spent like $16 at some drink at the bungalow or something. And I was like,
exactly. Yes.
I was like, oh my God, you're so right. And then like, and I even cared about what I was consuming at the time, but I was a little less conscious at the time. But yeah, it's just so interesting. It's so true.
It is.
So, Nastasha, you opened your first location in 2014, and now you have 6 brick-and-mortar locations. Most people I have that I interview on the pod, a lot of them are online. Okay. Or they're distributing, or they have services or whatever it is. But to have success today in brick and mortar is really amazing, and it's really awesome because especially during pandemic years and all that, so to keep growing is so cool. And I know that, I mean, just by being an owner and founder, I'm sure you've worn every hat in the bit, right? I mean, like whether it is doing the financing, the marketing, cleaning a bathroom, whatever it may be, I'm sure you've worn every hat, right? So
absolutely.
How important do you find it to wear every hat in the beginning, at least, of the process in terms of long-term success?
I think it's honestly the only way that you can be successful as a leader of a company is to fully understand the ins and outs of every aspect of your business. So I think it's vital that you wear every hat and you know how to do every job so you can speak to it, and also to be willing to do every job. I mean, to this day, I went into my shop. It's been, a long time since I've had to work behind the counter, for example, because somehow I created an office job for myself. But like I go in on a Saturday morning, I'm out for a run on the beach and I pop into the store and they're like, just back line out the door. There's only 2 girls on, like they didn't expect it to be that busy. And so of course that like the first thing I do is I jump on and I do dishes, and they're always like, don't get Nastasha off with the dishes. And I'm like, no, like I'm not going to ever ask you guys to do something I'm not willing to do, So,
sure.
Being willing to do absolutely anything that's, we have this ethos at our company this choose happiness. It's like stamped on, the back of our shirts, on the walls. It's like all over, for example. And that's another example of something that like we always say we have what we call the emotional moat around all of our locations. I'm a big believer that energy is infectious. Good energy, bad energy. I think we can all agree with that. We might be having a wonderful day and somebody comes in with a really negative energy that can impact us really quickly. And so we have this, it's a company policy like that, there's this emotional moat around every location. When you walk in the door, you drop your stuff off on the outside and you step into the choice bubble where we practice being in the present moment and we practice choosing happiness. And we all know, like I'm a single mom, like running this thing, on my own. It's a lot of work. So I'm not out here to say that I'm perfect or that I don't have bad days. I absolutely do. The difference is I would never unload my bad day on anybody else. Like I have tools to handle those things, but my number is on, I think we have 65 employees. My number is on every one of their phones. I always tell them, if you're having a bad day and you need someone to talk to, call me. Let's go grab coffee, talk about it. And like, if we need to cover your shift or if we need to like move you off the schedule, we treat it just like the flu. It's like, if you're having a really bad day and you can't bring it, then you can't check your stuff at the door, then, let's not work this shift. And honestly, most of the time I get in response to that, I get people that say, no, I have to come to work today. This is where I get happy, because they're in this environment of people who enjoy their job, who love what they're doing. But to that, what started me on that tangent was like, I don't ever ask them of something I'm not willing to do of myself. So I do the same thing every time I walk through that door, no matter how rough of a day I'm having or, what, chaos is going on in my personal life. I drop that stuff off at the moat and I walk inside and I inject the store with positivity. And that is infectious to the team members. It's infectious to the customers. It's infectious to the food, which is mostly made up of water. And if you've watched anything from Dr. Emoto with like the study of water, it's like, it's incredibly impactful what we say and what we do. And so we really, we really do go the distance with that kind of stuff. Again, tangent, but.
Well, you have an infectious smile. I don't think I've seen you not smiling. I'm sure you don't smile at some point in your life. But how do you do it? Why do you do it? Is that why? Is this all tied together? Is that how you're able to bring this smile? Because it's infecting everyone else, and in turn, it's just kind of naturally doing it to yourself?
Absolutely. Sometimes I wonder if, did I come in wired a certain way? I don't know. Cause I definitely had I've been given anything but an easy life. I've definitely had a lot of challenges that I've lived through, lots of like crazy stuff that I've gone through. And I think I've always just kind of been like a half glass full kind of person, in general. So maybe to some degree, it's like my chemical makeup, my DNA, whatever. It's like, thanks, mom and dad. But also a lot of it is a choice. I have these moments where, things are really tough, but I consciously choose to not dwell on my problem, but focus on a solution. And that's something we teach as a company with every person that comes to work with us. I've read a lot of things. I've taken a lot of classes and courses that it kind of helped me to develop my, my mindset and my philosophy on life. And we share that. I host a company book club and we give free books and we invite everybody in and we teach all this stuff because we really do want to make an impact on the people that come into our doors. And people do. I can honestly sit here and say people come in here and they leave better than they got here, because they're exposed to these ideas and these things. And back to that emotional mode, it's like, I think it was Albert Einstein who said, you can't solve a problem at the same level of thinking that created it. And it's so true. It's like when we can, leave our problems at the door and step into this positive environment, and all of a sudden we're like, we're feeling different, we're thinking differently. We step back outside. It's like our problems are there for us when we walk back out the door, but now we're tackling them from a different, frame of mind. So I don't know. I think it's a culmination of a lot of different things that help me to have that mindset. And it is when I am willing to like give positive energy to you, for example, in turn, like that feeds me back, it's like this symbiotic relationship, if you will, so when you're willing to smile at people and be positive and happy, it's like you do get fed back the same thing. And I always teach the girls, it's one thing to like, it's really easy to be loving and kind to people who are loving and kind back, obviously, once in a while. And it's rare at Choice because I find that healthy people are happier people. So we do deal with a lot of healthy, happy people, which is great. But once in a while, you get somebody who's having a really bad day and they come in and they're just like not happy and they're not nice. And that's where the real work comes in. And that's what we teach at Choice. It's like, can you stay in your vibration in the presence of somebody who's like that, that can be tricky for a lot of people. A lot of people, it's like, oh, if you're going to be nice to me, I'll be nice to you, you know? But it's bigger than that. It's like, can you be nice and can you bring people up to your level instead of stepping down to their level, you know? And you
Yeah.
feel better afterwards. Like, you know, if somebody comes in and they're being rude or a stinker and I meet them at their level, after they leave, I feel worse. Whereas if I stay at my level and I'm still treating them with love and kindness, it doesn't mean I don't have boundaries or, you know, of course I have lots of boundaries. We've divorced a lot of customers because we have the same expectation out of our customers we have out of our team members. You don't get to come in and treat our people badly and then us expect our people to treat, you know, right? So we've divorced them in a loving and kind way. But, you know, to me, it's like, it's not worth the money to have people like that coming in and treating our people poorly. So you get one chance. And, you know, if you continue to come in and bash our people or treat them badly, like, then we don't want your business. You know, there's another juice place for you somewhere else. But at Choice, we have high expectations of everybody.
I dig it. I love that. And it's great that you were able to become that way due to your, you know, things that you did to learn and, you know, the mindset that you were able to adopt from a lot of, like you said, like whether it was taking courses or listening to the right mentors or things like that, because it's hard when it's not taught to us.
Yeah.
You know, I got really lucky. Like I had a mom who was, you know, from a young age telling me, you know, smile even when there's no reason to smile, because even that smile will then triggers the emotions. Like it tricks your brain into being happy. And then all of a sudden you forgot that, you know, that you're unhappy. So that, you know,
that's amazing. Your mom's an amazing woman. That's incredible.
Yeah. I got lucky. I got dealt a good one.
You did.
Yeah. So you told me something that resonated. When we last talked, you said, even though my business is not a nonprofit, I feel like a nonprofit. Talk about that.
Yes. Okay. Well, I spoke on it a little bit earlier in that, you know, the integrity piece, right?
Right.
It's really tough. I'm going to give you a small example again. Early in business, the first maybe 6 months of business, you know, the restaurant industry is really hard. And I think 1 in 2 fail in the first year. And this is like the end of 2014. I just opened up in the summer of 2014. I hit my first rainy season. I split up with my business partner. I was bleeding cash in the beginning. I didn't know anything about business at the time. He was kind of like the business and I was like the creative, the ideas, the inspiration and all that stuff. So when we split up and he left the business, man, it was a really scary time for me. It was a really hard time. And I was approached by somebody who is, you know, one of the original people in a huge clothing brand. And he came into the shop and he shook my hand and he's like, I want to help you open 20 of these. He's like, I'm going to invest in this. I'm going to help you open 20 of these. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank God someone's here to save me, you know? And I went up to his fancy office in Orange County and sat down at this huge table. It's like me on one end and like 5 guys on the other end. And they start like, you know, picking apart my product. They're like, you know, we're gonna have to pasteurize this, you know, because they're, you know, we got to stretch those margins. We got to do away with this recycled paper nonsense. Nobody cares about that. You know, we had to switch over to plastic bottles because it's cheaper and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, here I was thinking like, this is going to be my savior. And that day I had to make a really hard decision. You know, it's like, what's more important to me, you know? And at the end of the day, I left there. And I mean, there was a night I literally right around this time that I cried myself to sleep. I mean, hysterically cried myself to sleep because it was like, I didn't know how I was going to make my next payroll. And it was a really scary time for me. You know, there was no end to the rain. The forecast was like raining for the, you know, unforeseeable future, and rain is not good in my business. And, it was our first year, so we didn't have a strong database of customers of like that repeat daily user. And so again, I can't stress enough what a scary time it was. And I was, like I said, bleeding cash, didn't know what I was going to do. And here I am offered this like, you know, 20 store deal. You just have to compromise on your integrity. And I stood up, I thanked the guy for his time. And I just said, you know, if I can't grow with integrity, I don't want to grow at all. Like, and I accepted that like, okay, if, you know, even if I only make it to this next payroll, you know, at least I can say that I did it and I believed in what I did and I didn't sacrifice, you know, my values to make a buck, you know, and not a lot of people can say that. And so I decided that day, I was like, if I cannot do this with integrity, I'm not going to do it at all, you know? And so I have, you know, lived by that since 2014. And sometimes that can feel like you're a nonprofit in a lot of ways, because there are times when we're not profitable, there are times when we do really well and there are times that we don't. And when we're not profitable, for example, in California, it's really tough because minimum wage keeps going up. And a lot of people, to, counteract that, they just raise their prices. But for us, like, we're a premium product. We already have a really expensive product. So if I keep raising my prices, I price myself out of the market. So it's forced me to have to get really creative. It's also, brought people into, having integrity has brought people into my circle that want to make sure that we succeed. So we have some of the most incredible, Choice would not be what it is without the people that are behind it. Like, my team, I wouldn't be here today without them. Like, they are truly like what makes this thing work. And they make sacrifices to be able to work at Choice, to make sure that, we can stay, in business, because they believe so much in what we do. So having integrity has saved us in a lot of ways from an employee standpoint. Also, as I said earlier, it's been kind of a true north for me. And we don't design our products to say, how much can I make on this juice? We design our products to say, how can we make this the healthiest juice out there? How can we make it sure it has the most integrity? The guest is getting the absolute best. And then how can we make enough money to keep the doors open doing that? Because really, if we were going to actually like make money, like most juice businesses make money, I'd have to charge $20 for this juice, to make the kind of margins that they're making on this pasteurized product. And that's just not an option for me. So there are times, for example, like, I just had to pull one of our top selling items from the menu because right now there's a shortage in coconuts, organic coconuts. And that's really driven the price up. So a price per case has gone up significantly. So for me to keep that on the menu, I would have to, and the reason why it's one of our best sellers is because we actually like hack open a whole coconut. You don't get raw coconut water anywhere unless you're actually getting a whole coconut. Anywhere else you're buying coconut water, it's pasteurized. And it doesn't taste the same. So we hack open raw coconuts. Yeah. We take all of the water, all of the meat, we blend it together with coconut butter, and then we add Blue Magic, which is basically like the most nutrient dense food that the planet Earth has ever created.
What is it? What's Blue Magic?
It's a microalgae. It's basically like a super blue spirulina. It's really high in protein, B vitamins. It's got omegas. It's literally the most nutrient dense food out there. It's incredible. And it has this beautiful natural blue hue. So I'm sure you've seen on the gram, like, all the blue drinks and blue smoothies and blue bowls. And anyways, so this stuff is pretty rad. And this is one of our best selling products. But because of the price of coconuts, I would have to, in order to just not lose money, I would have to sell that product now for $17 a bottle. Mm-hmm. Well, that prices everybody out of them. I mean, who's going to spend $17, right?
If you want to open up a store here at Abbott Kinney in Venice, you're good to go.
And right. And so, that's one of the, things, like, we have to pull one of our best selling products off of the market because I'm not willing to gouge my customer. I'm not willing to charge $17 for that product. So I have to pull it off the shelf. In order to, to bring it back, I'm going to have to wait till coconuts normalize and the price of coconuts, return, and I can make that product at a reasonable amount so that I can charge a reasonable amount for it. And so just rising costs of business have made it so challenging to stay in this business. I could have folded 100 times before for so many different reasons, but, we continue to have to just get really creative, and it actually gets me excited now. Like, I don't look at these challenges as like, oh man, minimum wage is going up again. What are we going to do? For us, that's like a $50,000 hit a year, for example, when it goes up. And it's like, wow, how are we going to stomach that? Like, we don't have an extra $50,000. What are we going to do? So it forces us to get creative. Like, we a couple years ago came out with a line of like ready to drink elixirs, and that's how we offset. It's like, okay, if we sell this many elixirs, that can offset the the rise in minimum wage. So it just has forced us to get creative and to look at things from a different way, whereas most companies just like up their prices. And of course, from time to time, that's going to, be a reality. I think it is for everybody over the years, but for us, I think we've only had one price increase since we started back in 2014, which is pretty incredible with all of the challenges and rising costs that we've had to face. So we've just gotten more and more creative, and the more we've done that, it's, again, we're not like a really highly profitable business, but we are a profitable business, and we have incredible, team members that support what we do because of that integrity piece. I think that's what keeps us going.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. And typically when I'm speaking to different business owners about something that makes their, brand a conscious brand or a conscious business, typically there's maybe a lot of the times there's something specific that they're doing. Maybe there's one thing or a couple of things. Clearly for you, it's not one thing. It's the whole business. It's the integrity of the products, of the sourcing of the products, to that mindset of the employees, being able to like not come into work if you're not, going to be with good vibes and good spirits, and that's going to feed and infect the people that come into the store, to rejecting clients or customers that are not in that vibration either. There's just so much involved that it's just such a full circle from a conscious business standpoint that really helps everything. The environment, the people involved, right? Your own body. So yeah, I mean, I love that. What an awesome example of a holistic conscious business that you're running, Nastasha.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love it. So you recently published a book. What was that about?
I did. Well,
Congrats.
Plant Food is Medicine, naturally is the title. And I'm really proud of it. It was a long time coming and way more work than opening up a store. I learned. So it took a long time, but I'm so excited about it. It's a lot of it is like it's a story. It's not just a cookbook, but it is a cookbook. It has a lot of our best selling items at Choice. It has the recipe in the book. So I want to empower people to be able to do more of this on their own. I realize not everybody can shop at Choice every day. And so we want people to, have access to this food. And so a lot of our like best selling items are actually like the recipes are in the book, which is really cool. And then some of my personal favorites that aren't on the menu are also in the book. And also my personal journey, some of what I shared with you goes into a little bit more detail. It is a 200 and something page book. So a little bit more detailed than what I shared with you, but my personal journey of like, the struggles of my childhood and coming out of that and making something positive and beautiful out of my life, from the tragedy of a really unfortunate childhood. And so it shares a lot of that. A big part of that is just really wanting to introduce my story and the why behind Choice to my own customers, because a lot of people that shop at Choice have no idea, even who I am or what the story behind Choice is. And I feel like that's such an important piece for people to know and understand. And also for me, I a big part of my life is wanting to inspire people. I always say, your past does not define your future. And a lot of us have had a lot of, struggle in our past. And it's easy to believe that like where we came from is all we're capable of becoming. And a big part of like what I'm passionate about is showing people that you can do anything with your life, no matter who you are, no matter where you came from. It's one choice at a time. You can absolutely change your circumstances. And I feel like I'm a living example of that. So a big part of like writing that book is sharing that with people, hoping, to inspire people to make healthier choices, but also, in their personal lives and their journeys that, you can find a deeper meaning and move forward from some pretty bad situations. So
absolutely. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank
I'm excited to
you.
check it out. I'll definitely be getting myself
Thank
a copy.
you. Yay.
And, Nastasha, you're clearly an example of a conscious leader. What do you think are the 2 traits that a conscious leader must embody today?
2 traits. Well, I think living by example, I think is probably one of the biggest ones, and also like earning the right to lead. That was something I kind of had to learn early on in business. It's like, okay, I'm the boss, so you should listen to me. You should do what I say because I'm the boss. And I learned really on that leadership style doesn't really work in today's environment anymore. It's like, just because somebody's in a position where they're supposed to listen to me doesn't necessarily mean I have the right to lead them. It's like you have to earn the right to lead people. A big part of doing that is, leading by example, doing what you're expecting of others, like, also being willing to do that yourself, getting to know people and not just like, here, this is the job, do the job, but actually investing your time, your energy, and your love in the people that you're, to me, it's a gift to be able to lead people. And so like recognizing that it is a gift and treating it as such. I think that's really important for leaders today to embody, because it's a different world we're living in today. And I think that people are more conscious today than I think we've ever been before, especially in a business setting. And more, this makes me so happy to see people aren't willing to sacrifice like their time just for a paycheck. It's like I get people every day that like left a job because they're just so unhappy with their work environment and they just want to come somewhere where they can feel good being. And And so people are like not willing to just like sacrifice, you know, as we were in the past, or as we were raised to believe we had to. And so I think that requires a different kind of leadership. I think it requires really embodying, you know, that in yourself, and being a good example of being positive, having a good mindset, and you know, being the change you wish to see in the world yourself, and not just expecting that of others.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
love that. And so, Nastasha, how can people get a hold of you, or I mean, you know, buy your book and find your
Yeah.
locations? You have 6 locations. What's the
Yes.
website?
Okay, so my website is choice, like you have a choice, and choicejuicery.com. And you can find all of our locations on that website. Also, our Instagram handle is Choice Juicery, so you can find us there as well. And my personal feed is Nastasha McKeon. And the book you can pre-order right now on our website, and it should be available to start shipping in the next 2 weeks, which is really exciting.
I love that. I love that. Well, congrats on that again. And I wish you nothing but the best. You're doing amazing things. So definitely keep doing you, Nastasha. And thanks for being on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. You know, it takes a lot to put these things together, but I truly love doing it. If you enjoyed this episode or the show in general, and you listen to it on audio podcast, please take some time to give it a review. It would really mean a lot to me. And if you watch the video, please go ahead and just click subscribe and share it with somebody that you think would like it. It would really mean the world to me, and it helps keep the show alive. Visit sebastiannaum.com for more content, and follow me on Instagram at sebnaum. That's SEBNAUM. Thanks again for spending your time with me. I know it is valuable. I hope you have a great rest of the day and week. Till next time.